are Jane and Stephanie from Tipperary Studies here in Rossmore Community Centre, collecting stories from locals for Heritage Week 2025.
Jane here speaking to Father Paddy Ryan, Mason, about his school days in Rossmore, cycling to Thurles, and when electricity came to Rossmore.
Hello Paddy and welcome. I'm Jane Bulfin. I'm chatting now to Paddy Ryan from Rossmore, Clonalty. Father Paddy Ryan.
Father Paddy, that's right, yeah.
Father Paddy, you grew up in this
I grew
area.
up here about 200 or 300 yards from here. Up to the cross, turn right, first house and you're right down the road.
This building is actually the school you attended.
This is the school I attended, and I came here on my own. I wasn't introduced to it or anything else. I just walked in one morning, about 1940, probably in September. I had 4 older sisters, and they had gone to school, and I was on my own, and I wondered where they were. Holidays were over. So I rambled up to the school. I kind of knew where it was. I suppose my mother would have brought me up here walking or whatever it was. And I came into the door, and there was a fireplace in here in the old school on this end. And I walked up where one of my sisters, next oldest to me, was sitting. And I sat down, but there was a fireplace. I sat by the fireplace, and the mistress gave me a slate and a piece of chalk, and off I went.
And what age were you?
4 years of age. I wasn't enrolled till the next year. First year, so as infants and so on, we had slates, and we had marla, plasticine, like marble clay almost, and we made altars and made little men, little pigs and goats and sheep and cows and so on. Then we had drill. You get drilled when in your Irish. Learned a tremendous amount of Irish. But the school mistress was Mrs. Crowe. She was a local woman, and she was Ryan as well. Her maiden name was Minnie Ryan Andy, and she was a wonderful woman.
And you said to me earlier that not only was the school, but there's no building attached to this, but out in the yard.
Out towards the road. Just there was a special area there. When we were children, it was known as the Green. Now the Green was as bare as this floor, there was no grass on it, but it was still known as the Green. That was the site that people believed the church was on, right? The church was built there about 1710, 1720, around that time. There's a very good account of it in the Bishop Butler's visitation of the Archdiocese of Cashel.
There's no sign of that church today?
No sign of it, no. It appears in one of the Ohlone maps. If you look at the Ohlone map for Rossmore, you'll see it on it. It sees a drawing of it, yes.
I wondered with National School being at a distance from the actual village.
Yes, and then at the river, in the summertime then all of us got into the river. We went barefooted, of course, and we spent our break time down the river fishing with little fishing rods that we made ourselves, with a piece of stick and a snare at the end of it.
A sally rod?
A sally rod, yes, and a snare at the end of it. The snare was made of wire, copper wire.
Did you catch anything?
Never. One or two people caught something too in my time. There were a few who were adepts, but most of us were amateurs and we couldn't get anything. So, and there was a little divide down the middle of the river, and the water was sent down a channel on the left-hand side, the first eye of the bridge from here, and there was a stream going down. It went down all the way down to what is known as a creamery, and that was a famous stream. It goes back to about 1800, maybe late, a little bit later. But there was a bleach mill at the creamery in 1800 for bleaching linen. There was a tuck mill there, yes. There was also later on, from the 1840s on, there was a woolen mill on the same side. And then the woolen mill closed. It was taken over eventually by the people in Ardfinnan, the guys of Ardfinnan. They took it over. That lasted a good while. And then the wool trade died out here in this area. And private creamery started up. The owner of it was a man called Hanley. Now he took over the old woolen mill, and a lot of the machinery in it, the wheel that was driven by the water wheel, of course, was the source of power. And then after a few years it was taken over by the Rossmore Clonalty Cooperative Society. And it lasted as a cooperative up to about 1927. There was a lot of problems from the 1921 or 22 on. There were quite a lot of problems with the cooperative, and a major row developed over it.
As well as obviously farming would have been the main employment
Yes.
when you were growing up.
When I was growing up, the main employment was farming, right?
Yeah.
Then you have people like myself. My own family, my father was a mason. He was a small-time builder, right?
Yeah.
Now, he did very well in the 30s and 40s because there was a lot of land commission houses being built in places like Golden, Mantle Hill and so on. So he went down there and then there were county council cottages being built.
Yeah. Labour
So,
cottages.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And he did a lot of the building for the local farmers and so on, right out as far as Capel White. Then the war came, of course, and as the war progressed, materials became scarcer and it became almost impossible to. So he died very young. He died, 1944, yes.
You were still in school.
Still in school, yeah.
Yeah.
The youngster, yeah.
That was hard on your mother.
Terrible, yes. There were 9 of us.
Hand-me-downs all the way.
All the way, yes, yes. And fights over bicycles and
There wasn't many bikes to go around
not
neither
at
of you
all.
anyway.
No such thing. But eventually we did have enough bikes for everybody.
Oh,
Yes, because they were all going to school, you see. And I had sisters cycling to school in Cashel and son cycling to school in Thurles.
so anyone going to secondary school had to cycle.
Everybody went to secondary school, yeah.
She did very well, your mother.
Yes, she did, yeah. Mm.
Other businesses around like that weren't farming, would there have been a tailor in the area?
There were tailors. My mother was a dressmaker as well. Yes, so that was part of her income. And then the forge, of course, there were 2 forges almost beside each other. One belonged to my grandfather, my maternal grandfather. He had a forge on a farm. And then his brother had a forge on a farm about 200 yards away. There were no mechanics, there were no motorised machinery.
Not here.
Not here, anyhow. And all the work on farms was done with implements that were made in the forges and repaired there and so on.
Yeah.
So apart from shoeing horses, they were kept going.
And how long did they stay going? Do you remember the forges?
Oh, I do. Indeed. The
operation?
forges kept going up to the 1950s,
Right.
and then about 1950, you could actually see the break coming on. You could almost identify it to a year. About 1952, 53, the forges began to collapse. Now there are a number of causes for that. There was massive immigration. It had an extraordinary effect on the countryside, that all the younger population suddenly disappeared. Some roads with no young people left, like the ones that would have caused a bit of a stir around the place. They were all gone. Like the youngsters you'd have met at dances, and they had disappeared. Yeah. Now that had a big effect on the countryside for a while, and then new populations began to come along again, and society changed. And then I suppose after a while there were better opportunities for employment locally or within the country itself. So a lot of them stayed on and moved on to the towns and to Dublin, but then they came home on the weekends. And
Did you go away at all yourself,
I went myself. I left in 1954.
just before the electricity?
I worked with the ESB in 1953.
Did you?
I did, yes, I did. I worked the whole summer. I was just finished 5th year in school, and just as I was finished 5th year, the ESB had come already. Just as we were finished, and so another Ryan, I might say Peter Ryan, who lived up the road here. Peter and myself were coming from school one evening, and where PJ Maxwell came from, now all that area in Gould's Cross was covered with ESB lorries and equipment
Exciting.
and building, whatever they had, their sheds, stores. That was their centre. They set up a centre there, and from there they worked. And Peter and myself said, well, we'll try this guy and see if we get a job for the summer. And so I met this man called Mr. Miley. And Miley said, sure, he says, if you're old enough, he says, go and get a permit. So we went to town anyhow, turned around, went back into town. We went to the Labour office, and we got insurance cards and so on from a gentleman we knew very, very well. What age are you? We're 18. We're 18.
Oh, and how that works.
So backdated and so on. So we were taken on, and we lasted the whole summer. We lasted right up to the end of the summer holidays. We might have taken a week at the end for a bit of a break, but otherwise we had a very good time. I could still point out that the poles that I put up to be replaced since, of course.
Yeah, it must have made a huge difference.
Yes,
To
absolute and extraordinary difference, yes. And I got to know so many people then, like the electricians coming around. There was one electrician, he came around here, he did all the houses around here, a man called Tommy Fitzpatrick. And then he set up a business over in Loch Long later on and did exceptionally well. He became one of the big businessmen.
Can I ask, were they paid by the government to put in, to electrify the houses, or did each house
Oh,
have
no.
to pay?
Oh no, you had to
Get
pay one once it
connected.
came to the house, it's up to yourself. a lot of things here that I suppose have been forgotten about, like even just out here. The bridge was built about 1840, but I have a famous page from the London Illustrated News. It's a sketch of the bridge, the road, and the RIC and the army moving up along. That was the person they were looking for, was one of my great-grandfathers.
A Ryan grandfather?
No, he was a Hart. He was from Thurles. Okay. And the house, you can see the two houses, there are two houses up on the left-hand side of the sketch. That's where my great-great-grandfather came from, William Taylor. And William Taylor's daughter married James Hart. Oh. And James Hart had come from Thurles. He was one of the Fenian bulls. Yes. The other house was Edmund Taylor's. So they were evicted eventually, and
I imagine it didn't make them very popular with the landlord.
No. But he lived up in Thurles then afterwards, and he had a very large family. The family are a most interesting family. I'm going to write it up sometime. The story of his family and how most of them migrated to the United States. They did exceptionally well. I mean, but there's a story behind how they did well. Later, another time, yes.
There weren't that many big houses outside of, Dundrum was the closest really
Dundrum,
big estate.
Biggest one in the locality.
Yeah.
Then Greens of Capamura. Woodford was Murphy's originally, yes, and then became Dwyer's and on, I think, Kennedy's eventually, maybe. It was Dwyer's of Woodford when I was growing up. Then, of course, Pennyfeathers, Marlow, yes.
So they've been all sort of radiating out from Cashel.
That's right, yes.
Yeah.
Then Gould's Cross, of course, you had the little hotel there in Gould's Cross. Gould's Cross would have been a hub of activity. See, it was a railway station, there was a hotel there, and before they built the railway into Cashel, Bianconi's coaches used to come out there. And Bianconi owned that hotel. And then on the road down, further down in Longfield, Bianconi had a house there which Tommy Wade lived in.
Oh,
it's still there.
The famous jockey.
Yeah. Then just beyond that again, you have Longfield House. Lady Watson lived there when I was a youngster growing up.
Probably by then they didn't have as much influence.
Oh, no.
Was sort of gone in 1920.
No. There were very few, what you could say, really big farmers here. Very, very few.
Yeah.
Like the one family I mentioned, the Greens of Capamura and Pennyfeathers of Marlow. Fridays would have been one of the biggest farmers in Rossmore at the time. They would have had, and then the Simpsons and Johnsons post-famine after the Griffith valuation.
Thank you very much for coming in and chatting to us.
So that brings our conversation to a close. To everyone listening, thank you for joining us and helping us keep these stories alive through your interest and support. A huge thank you from us to the Rossmore community, whose generosity in sharing their time and knowledge made this possible. Your willingness to share your memories enriches us all. We're also deeply grateful to the Tipperary County Council Heritage Office for funding this project. Again, thank you for listening.